team, welcome back. Thank you very much. We've had some amazingly positive feedback about the video about surviving home learning, and I had a bit of an idea that some information about helping with behaviour at home might be useful for you, and so I've kind of thrown it together because I just think that actually while you're keen and wanting to get things established and making it work, let's get that information out there for those of you who have got the time and capacity to listen to it, and hopefully there'll be a few hints and tips in here that might help you. So some of these have come from a lot of teaching experience on my behalf, and helping and supporting other staff with that over the years. I've taught in a variety of settings that have varying needs with behaviour really. The borough ran some absolutely excellent training at the Head Teachers Conference last year with a guy called Paul Dix, D-I-X, he's worth a Google actually. He wrote a book called When the Adults Change, Everything Changes. It's made for teachers, but actually I've been able to apply some of those principles that I think you'll be able to use at home. Quite a long time before I was at Braywick, and when I was doing my dissertation for my master's degree, I did a research project about family learning, and one of the things I was lucky enough to do as part of that was to be trained in delivering parenting courses for families. So some of the information's come from there as well. So hopefully when we put all of those together for you, there's a few bits here that might be able to keep you going and support your managing your children's behaviour at home. Consistency is key. We work really hard on this at school. It's really important that the children are absolutely certain about what the expectations of them are, and that is exactly the same all of the time from any adult that they might come across. That the rules are the same, and that what is going to happen in terms of consequences for good behaviour and bad behaviour is exactly the same regardless of which adult that they come across. Where children actually really struggle is if that changes all the time. This is hard when you're a parent because what you want to do is shower your children with love and affection all of the time, and one really easy way to show children how much you love them is to give them everything that they would like. But inevitably, it's really not possible. So although every time they ask for a snack, we want them to have one because we know that they want it and it will make them happy if they have it. Actually, you need to think about the fact that it's not healthy. It's down to you to balance their diet. So it's around setting the expectations clearly so that you are doing what you know is best for the child, and that can sometimes mean that you have to take a hard line and not give in to what they want. I'm going to read you what I've put on there. I hope that it resonates with you. Children feel happy and safe when they know what to expect. Giving them this is a more effective way to show them you love them than to give them everything they want. It's probably a bit of a hard message to hear, but that consistency is really going to help you, hopefully. Okay, keep it positive. I'm going to give you some information about the way that we do things at school and the way that you might be able to use this to help yourselves at home. We need to be aware of, have a look at this. What you'll find, and if you start looking out for it, you'll spot it, is that children pick up on your mood even if you think you're hiding it. And we find the same thing in the classroom. So if the teacher comes in and the teacher's super happy and excited and is jumping around and going to do a really fun, innovative lesson, the children hype up in exactly the same way, and they are jumping around and noisy. If the teacher comes in and they're very calm, very quiet, the children will respond to that and they will do exactly the same thing. And children can change like that in seconds. So at any point that you need to change this, you absolutely can. And you might think the children will be surprised by that. They won't be. They just won't be. That is fine. They will be okay with that. Children will mirror what you are showing them. Okay, so if you are stressed or cross or anxious or sharp with them, or then they are going to behave in the same way back to you. So I'm not a great person to go to the supermarket with because I do have a habit of listening into what other people are doing and being quite frustrated by it. So when you hear people shouting at their children in supermarkets, they shouldn't really be surprised that their child is rude and shouting back, because actually they're just doing what they've seen you do. What you need to do, as far as you possibly can, it's not easy, is be a really good role model. Keep calm the whole time. Take a deep breath, think before you say anything. Teaching is an act. Parenting is going to need to become an act. Don't do what you want to do, do what you think you should do. Imagine that I'm standing behind you and I'm saying, okay, calm down, think before you do anything, and as far as you can, make it as positive for them as you possibly can. It will make a really big difference, I promise you. The downward spiral. When I was doing my original teacher training, we were told about this, and I've never forgotten it because it's actually really important. It's very easy to let things deteriorate very quickly. So if you are speaking negatively and moaning at people, then the children will respond to you in a negative way, and then you'll get crosser with them, and your reaction will be based on that negativity, and then they will see your reaction and they'll be crosser and more fed up, and their behaviour will get worse. What you need to do in contrast is the absolute opposite. So instead of coming up to here on your thermometer, you need to see if you can bring it all the way down and calm and relax, and tell them how amazing they are, tell them what a wonderful job that they're doing, tell them how much you love them, tell them how proud you are of something that they've done. Keep it happy, keep it calm, keep it light as far as you possibly can. And although it seems hard at the time, it's easier in the long run than dealing with the fallout of the downward spiral of doom. Okay, there is a difference between wound up and cross. I'm going to demonstrate that for you. Here comes wound up. How many times have I told you? No, you cannot have that now. I'm busy. Just go away. Go in the other room. Go and get on with something. I just need to finish this. Leave me alone. We've all been guilty of that, okay? Please don't feel bad about that. We've all been there. What your child needs in order to pull them up sharp and stop the behaviour is to know that you're cross. And it needs to be short and sharp and calculated. It is not an emotional reaction to what your child has done. It is you implementing your behaviour strategy that I've now taught you, okay? So here comes teacher cross. Literally, we get good at this because we practice. We practice in the car, we practice in the mirror. You have to. You need a teacher cross face, you need a teacher cross voice, and it needs to be different to what would happen the rest of the time, because they will respond to that, okay? Here we go, I'm going to practice it on you. Right, now I'm cross. Short and sharp, yeah? Okay, be present. Most parenting in busy lives happens on the fly. Oh, that's wonderful, yeah, great. Oh, did you? How wonderful. Yeah, that's really great. Okay, lovely, yeah, excellent. Your child would really benefit from a really small amount of concentrated time from you, where you get down to their level, you look them in the eye, and you give them some really direct positive praise. Be really clear about what it is that they have done that you're really pleased with. Well done, thank you for tidying up after dinner. I really appreciate that. That's really made the evening much easier for me. Thank you for your help. That's an example for you. Okay, I would suggest that it might be helpful for you to set some ground rules for your house. You probably think you have these already because most schools think that they have them already. But if a school is struggling with behaviour, then one of the things that is recommended that they do is check their rules and calibrate it. Make sure that everybody thinks that the rules are the same thing. So what people can be guilty of at school and at home is when you start thinking about rules, we come up with a really long list, because that would be really easy, right? Don't fight with your brother and sister. Don't jump on the sofas. Make sure you always tidy up after yourself. Don't be rude. Make sure that you go to bed on time. No running inside. No shouting. And before you know where you are, you'd have an enormous list. Absolutely, you want none of those things to happen, but we just need to look at a slightly different way of doing it. I'm going to help you. Here we go. So we suggest we do this at school, sit down as a family and write the rules together, because if you impose them on people, then they are going to find that a lot harder to swallow. If they feel that they've been part of it in some form of democracy, then you're much more likely for them to want to do that and to join in. You can tailor that a little bit and you can swing it. You can have an idea in your mind before you start of what those rules are going to be, and through the conversation make sure that things that you wanted to be in there are the things that you end up with. Absolutely. This is the tricky one, isn't it? 5 rules. I'm going to talk about this in a minute. It's based on what I just said. You just need to keep it simple and keep it positive. I think that's the next one. Yep, here we go. So, no no's, no don'ts, and instead talk about things that you would like to see. So instead of no running, we would say always walk inside. Instead of no shouting, we would say always use your inside voice. It just makes it a bit easier for people to be able to go along with them if it's been phrased positively in the first place. The rules need to apply to everyone and be reinforced by everyone. We do this at school, you're going to need to do this at home. So do keep this in mind. What this means is that whatever you are telling the children they need to do, you've got to do the same thing. So if you set a rule that nobody's allowed their phone at the dinner table, you need to not bring your phone to the dinner table. Now your children will probably tell you when you're breaking the rules, so be ready for that. And you probably need to support each other in the house in terms of adults with that as well, because it is really important to lead by example. Okay, so here we go, 5 rules. I've made it easy for you. I've suggested some. You don't need to follow these. You can have whatever rules you want. I've just put together a few ideas for you, okay? All right. Be kind. So, under this subheading are all the things that you know are included in that, okay? So don't fight with your brother and sister, don't say mean things, don't answer back. Anything like that is coming under here. So instead of needing all of those rules, you need to use these as your mantra, okay? These 5 things need to be, I would suggest, up somewhere on a piece of paper and a poster up in your house, and then you need to refer back to them all of the time. So if somebody does something that you don't like, don't say stop fighting with your brother. You need to say, are you being kind? And just turn it round like that. I hope you can see the difference there. Next one, be respectful. Respectful of each other, respectful of property. So we're not going to have don't jump on the sofa, don't snatch things off people, don't leave the DVDs lying on the side. We're not going to have any of those things. We're going to talk about, are we being respectful? And the same would go for people. So, you know, don't answer back, don't shout at people, that kind of thing. All this is going to come under respect. So if they're doing any of the things that I've just listed as examples, you can say, do you think you're being respectful? That might help. Be responsible. People are going to have to take responsibility at this time and look after each other and do things for themselves. So if they walk away from the table and they haven't put their plates away, if they haven't tidied their toys up, if they haven't helped somebody else in the family when they could have done, if they haven't taken control of their own learning, all of these things that you might be finding hard, you can say to them, are you being responsible? And then have a chat about whether they are or not and why and how you can change it. Be safe. We use this one a lot in school. Here goes the jumping too high on the trampoline, leaping off stuff, hanging out of windows, doing anything that might hurt another person, trying to help but actually being a nightmare by trying to use the kettle by themselves. All of these sorts of things that might happen, okay? So instead of, no, you're not allowed to use the kettle, no, you're not allowed to go outside unless I've told you that you can, are you being safe? Have a conversation about it. Right, this one is specially for isolation time. I've added this. I would suggest you have something around giving each other personal space. It's not going to be easy. There's a very confined amount of space, which is going to mean that it's even more important. So when people, when your child is climbing all over you or trying to touch the laptop while you're working, or when one of them's in one room trying to do something, when somebody else is trying to do something different and they're getting in each other's way, maybe you just need to remind each other that actually people need a bit of space, and this is about time as well as actual proximity. So I think you need to set some ground rules around, actually if I tell you that I'm going to go off and do something now and it's going to take me 20 minutes, you need to give me my space and find something to do by yourself, and I'll speak to you when I've finished in 20 minutes time. I think that's more than reasonable, but you need to set those parameters and you need to be consistent with it, as we've discussed earlier. I worked with a fantastic head teacher a few years ago who used to speak in terms of creating a currency. Try not to let the children watch this bit if you can possibly avoid it. House points are meaningless. Wow cards are just a piece of paper that I had printed. Star of the Week certificates are just a piece of paper. We make them mean something to the children. We have created a currency. You need to think about ways that you can do the same thing. It's all about buy-in. Did I write that? Yeah, you've got to make it matter, okay? So it's not about what it is, it's about the fuss and the celebration that goes behind what you're doing, okay? So when a child comes down for a wow card, then there's going to be a big fuss made in their classroom. That's such an amazing thing, you should definitely go and get a wow card. They come into the office if there's anyone there. Oh, have you come in for a wow card? Oh my goodness, what have you been doing? Show me, let me see your work, what a great idea. Then they bring it home to you. Wow, you've been to see Mrs. Donnelly today, look at your wow card. It's not the card that is making the difference, right? It's everything else that goes behind it. So you've got to be clever and you've got to find ways of making the same sort of thing happen for you at home. I would suggest that you call in reinforcements in whichever way you can. So at school we would do this for positive and negative. In the way that I've just described to you, there would be, one form of praise from directly from the person who's experienced you doing it. If it's really, really good, they might go and tell somebody else about it. And equally, and we'll come on to this when we talk about sanctions, you can do the same with negative behaviour. You might say something to them first, but then there will be steps down the line where other people are involved. I still think you've got a chance of doing that. You can do that with other people in the house, but you can also do it with family and friends who your children can speak to remotely. It makes a really big difference. Put yourself in their shoes and think about how it feels if you might get an email from work that says, "Oh, such and such told me what an amazing job you've done. Thank you very much, that's great." Think about, how impactful that is and see if you can implement something similar. While you're all at home, while you're creating this currency, and if you've all got to follow these rules, and some of them are going to be harder than others, why not suggest that everybody is going to benefit from rewards? The reward system could be different for everyone, but you should absolutely all get rewards. You're just as entitled to them as the children. Think about what you would like when your behaviour is really good and talk to the children about that and set that up. And they will happily give you your points on your chart or whatever else, I'm absolutely sure, and help you work towards your Kinder Egg or your bath but on your own, or whatever your reward is going to be at the end of it. Have a think about that. Okay, so let's talk about rewards. So as we've just said, absolutely recognition is key. That is your go-to, and that will work for 80% of the time. You might notice we don't give out loads of stickers and things like that, because actually you can do, but what the children really want to hear is us celebrating for them and with them and being really specific about what it is that we like that they've done. We would celebrate that their handwriting in that piece of work is far better than it was in a previous piece of work. We would celebrate how kind and helpful they've been in a particular situation by one certain thing that they've done. There's all kinds of different ways that we do it, but it's mainly just about being really explicit and talking about how pleased you are. That will often be enough. Don't feel that you've got to bribe them with things that are complicated and difficult and expensive, because actually you don't need to do that at all. What I'd suggest is you have a levelled approach. You can do this however you want to. In school we have this, so reward, verbal praise would always be the first one. It might be followed by something like, some classes you might have seen them have got a behaviour chart, and the children can move up and down the chart as the day goes on. That's often enough to keep them motivated actually. Be careful with that in terms of consistency. Whatever you're going to do with something like that, you can only move them one bit at a time, and you can't start showering points or moves on a chart or stickers or whatever else you decide just because you're feeling really emotional about it, although that is absolutely what you want to do. You cannot do minus 150 points, and equally you cannot do 150 bonus points. It has to be that you agree on your currency and then you move very carefully up and down those stages, okay? Sanctions. We're trying not to talk about punishment and people being naughty, but we do talk about sanctions, and there are times where you've done all the positive praise in the world and actually it hasn't worked and they need telling off. This is how it's going to go. 3 verbal warnings. Count them. Be specific and be clear with the child. This is your first warning. If you use those words, then they will understand that and recognise it from school, because that is what we say. Make sure you give them 3 before you start throwing out sanctions or punishments of any kind. It's really important. Often a verbal warning will be enough. One of the reasons is because you're going to be really clear and consistent about it. And the other one is because what you are also going to do is you are going to ask yourself why the child is misbehaving. I can absolutely promise you that children are not just naughty because they're naughty. I know that might be really hard to believe, but actually they're not. If they are not following your house rules, if the praise hasn't worked, something is going wrong. And what we encourage staff to do is think, what could I have done differently? And you have to put it on you and not on the child. It's not easy to do. But we even say to the children, I'm really sorry, I've got this wrong for you today. Your behaviour is showing me that there is a problem. Let's see if we can work it out. I reckon you can probably keep this going at home, because you need more warnings before anything else happens. Otherwise you're going to be racing up and down these ladders of rewards and sanctions, and it's quite difficult to manage and can be a bit scary and shocking for the children. So 3 written warnings. What we would do at school is we might write their name up on the board and put 3 circles next to it. And then every time they get another warning after that, we would colour a circle in. It's very visual for them and they can see how that's going. Within this, you need to be able to take the circles off as well as keep colouring. It's pretty tempting when you get a rule like this in place, that you are just going to colour in those circles because their behaviour is really bad and they're really annoying you. That isn't really very helpful. What you need to do is, at every level of this, as soon as the child is doing the right thing, catch them and reward them for it and praise them, and turn it as quickly as you can from this "stop it, that is not allowed," there's your cross bit, into "fantastic, thank you so much, you're sitting beautifully, I really appreciate it." And you've got to spin it like that, and you've got to be quick and avoid the downward spiral that we talked about, right? So even within this, say, "Oh, well, you've put all of those things back together again. I really appreciate that. Thank you. I'll rub your name off the board." Because actually that's really motivating, and that's what's going to keep them going. It's not easy. You're going to have to take a lot of deep breaths, but you'll get better at it. Okay, and then I suggest that you have levels of sanctions. At school, we hardly ever get this far, okay? You shouldn't really need to at home, but think about what those things are going to be. So, I mean, you can try some sort of timeout or naughty step, or in the same way, call in reinforcements and think about you're going to ring somebody or tell somebody about their behaviour. But keep it short and keep it sharp. So if you're going to go for timeout, you might fancy locking them in their bedroom for the rest of the day, but actually it's not really a very constructive way of doing it. You've probably heard that you're basically looking at 1 minute for every year of their life is more than enough. What you just are looking to do is put a stop to what was happening and then turn it round and make it positive again, and off you go again, putting it behind you. Put it behind you. It's not easy to do, but put it behind you. As soon as they have had their sanction for their behaviour, move on, catch them doing the right thing and praise them for it as quickly as you can. To begin with, it's going to seem mad because you're going to praise them for doing nothing in particular. "Oh, you're sitting fantastically watching the television nice and quietly and not annoying anybody. Thank you so much for doing that. That's much better." It seems a bit mad, but it will make a really big difference to them and it will work, I promise. Okay, here we go. A few more tips for you. I might have talked about some of these before. So just as I was saying, keep it short. What you might find is that actually, if their behaviour is quite challenging at the time, you might say, right, we need to use the give each other space rule, and this isn't time out, but actually you need to go and do something away from me because I'm cross with you. Don't feel bad about saying that. They are people and you are teaching them that their behaviour has an impact on somebody else. And if that's negative, they need to understand that. So if they are really annoying you and you need them to know that, then tell them. And if you need them to keep away from you for a little while, then tell them. But that is different to a time-out sanction. Make sure the sanction punishes them and not you. You have got to think about something that means something to them that they are going to be sad to lose or do without, that isn't going to be an absolute nightmare for you. So if you take away their favourite thing, time on the trampoline, Xbox, TV, what are you going to do with them then? Because it might be that actually it becomes an absolute nightmare for you. So think really strategically when you set your rules about what those punishments are going to be, and try to think of something that you can implement that isn't going to be an absolute nightmare for everybody else in the house. This might sound like a bit of a funny one, but I'll try and explain myself. What you are looking for is the child to be sorry. And that's what I look for at school very much. So, occasionally, and I'm talking really occasionally, maybe once every couple of months, a teacher might bring a child to me and say, they've really misbehaved, they need to come and see you. What I will do first is I will always ask that teacher what they have tried already. I'm not going to get involved or do anything to that child until I know that either their behaviour was horrifically unsafe and they did something that really hurt somebody, or they've been through the entire behaviour system, 3 verbal warnings, 3 written warnings, all of their sanctions. They've been spoken to at the end of each one and tried to redress the balance of what's going on, and still they are misbehaving. The staff have thought carefully about what all of those other circumstances might be. Were they bored? Were they upset about something? Were they worried? Were they tired? Were they hungry? If it's none of those things, then absolutely that child needs to be in trouble. But the level of trouble, what you're looking for is that they give you that look where you know they really understand that it was the wrong thing and they're sorry for it. Occasionally, I will have a child come into my office for this reason. If they come in and they are already in tears and looking terrified, I will have a rational, calm conversation with that child. If they're not and they look like they don't care, I will shout at them until they cry. It hardly ever happens. Most children will never have it happen in their whole school career. But what we are looking for in each child, and it happens at a different point for each of them, and sometimes different in circumstances for each of them, is that you know that they understand what they did was wrong and why. So if they do something and go, oh sorry, and carry on, that's the issue, isn't it? Because are they sorry? Or are they saying sorry because saying sorry lets them get away with it? See if you can have a think about it. Okay, last few tips. It's not going to work first time, don't think it will. I've given you a whistle-stop tour in very few minutes of 20 years of experience and hours and hours and hours of training and reading and research. There might be some things in there that help. It might get better. If I had a magic wand, I would absolutely wave it for you, but I'm afraid that I don't. So have a go, see if it works. Evaluate it. So whether it works or doesn't, think about which bits worked and why not, and if necessary go back, watch the information again, see if there's something you missed, see if there's something you could have done more of, discuss it with somebody else, work it out together, and it will get slowly better over time. It's going to be a very long time in your house where the children are not coming to school. Try really hard to let some things go.
Don't pick them up on absolutely everything that they do wrong, because you're all going to go bonkers. Think about the things that really matter. Is it really important that they did something that was really disrespectful? Is it really important that something they did wasn't safe? Are they really getting in each other's way and not giving them space? Absolutely, talk to them about it if you need to, but you are going to need to tactically ignore 70% of the behaviour that you don't like. Give it a go and see how that works. This is a video game tip. It would also work for children that get totally immersed in absolutely anything that they're doing, okay? So you're cooking the dinner, you've cooked the dinner, you've put it on the table, you call the children, nobody comes. You then start shouting, "I've just called you, it's on the table, it's getting cold." We've all been there. Really try and plan this and say to the children, "I'm going to go and start cooking the dinner. It's going to be ready in about half an hour. Okay, dinner's going to be ready in 15 minutes. You've got 10 minutes till dinner. I'm starting to dish up the dinner. Don't start another game. Okay, it's time to come to the table." If they don't come to the table when you tell them to, and you've given them 3 or more warnings, you are absolutely within your rights to drag them away from whatever they are doing and come and do whatever it is that you need them to do. But if you haven't given them those warnings, it's probably not very fair. Is that my last one? Yes, it is. Okay, I hope that's helped. Good luck. I'll see you soon.